Okay, break.
Okay.
So, we just wanted to do one quick kind of shout out, I guess. No, not a shout out.
Say what?
What? Let's shout out to ourselves and our subscribers.
Please stop.
Okay.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Thank you again for checking out another one of our videos.
We love your support, and I think today's video will be very interesting for you. We're actually going to talk about, I guess, what's kind of been on our mind a lot lately, and that's going through another cycle of IVF, or kind of halting that train and going and pursuing a sperm donor. So we've kind of been weighing our options on both sides, looking at the pros and cons, and we haven't really made any decisions yet because obviously
it's a heavy decision.
Very heavy decision.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about it today, and that is what our video will be about. So,
yeah. So the first thing that we want to kind of talk about is why a sperm donor would even be an option for us. So the biggest thing is because our diagnosis is male factor infertility. So therefore, using a sperm donor completely erases that problem. Not only that, but it's cheaper per try, and it's less invasive than IVF, so easier on my body.
mm-hmm.
And we would be able to do it sooner than we would do IVF. And overall, it just would be easier in the now. And so that's hard for impatient people like me to think about, you know, I want things now, and it's hard to decide something that would be longer. So I guess the biggest thing about a sperm donor, though, that you have to take into consideration, and that we've been really humming and hawing over, is the fact that you are cutting out one person's genetics.
Yeah.
So the child wouldn't be genetically linked to Caleb. And that's a big deal. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, that's probably like the biggest thing to consider for us.
Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, I want my child to be genetically mine, and there's qualities that we both have that we would both like to see in our child. So I'm an only child as well, so the bloodline stops there if that's the case. So that's kind of something to think about. Not that that's really that big of a deal, but it's always something to think about, you know, something to consider. There's many different reasons why IVF could be harder for us, not just financially. We want to have 3 kids, maybe 4 kids. We really just like want to have a really big family. I come from obviously a small family because personally my greater family, extended family is quite large, but I'm an only child, so I'm a family of 3. We want to have a big family, so that's important to us. And with IVF, you know, that's quite the price tag for one child, basically. If we were to get frozen embryos from our next time, that would be huge, because then that's another chance to get more, and obviously it's more viable. But if we go through it again with no frozen embryos, like that's pretty much where we think we would be done, because if it were not to work and we didn't have that it's just we tried it again, and it's just not the route that's going to work best for us. If we take IVF and it works, we only end up ever getting 1 child, like that's also tough for us, because as much as we'll be so grateful, we want to have 3. So
yeah, and like, how do you weigh that? Like, that's the hardest thing for me, is what if we did IVF one more time and we got 1 child out of it, and then we tried a bunch of more times and it didn't work, and then we went to sperm donor after. So how do you deal with that? There's so many things about sperm donor that you have to think about the child's life and the child's well-being, like about telling them where they come from, about whether you'd want the sperm donor to be an open profile or not, whether there'd be any contact. There's so many things that it's just like mind-boggling to try to think about now when we haven't even conceived yet.
Yeah. And
so it's like a huge decision. It weighs on us, but it has been something we've been thinking about a lot. I think because it would be our next step. Basically, we always said if the IVF didn't work, we would do sperm donor, because I really want to experience pregnancy and I really want to experience labor and everything like that. And we would have to kind of figure out between us whether the genetic thing would be a deal breaker or not. So what do you think about, like, when you think about if we used a sperm donor and the child wouldn't be yours genetically, like, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's obviously saddening because I'm gonna not have those features prominent in that child that I have, right? But one of the biggest things is the child is going to be conceived inside Ayla either way, with or without me. And she's going to carry that child through 9 months, and she's going to deliver that child, and I'm going to be there the entire time. So I'm going to have a bond with Ayla that entire time, and whether or not it's biologically yours, the child, whenever it comes out of the womb and is, you know, when you give birth, like, there's always a strong connection between mother and baby. And I think with the father, obviously, you know, the father loves that child because it's his, but that doesn't change whether or not it's biological or not because of the way that you've been there the whole time.
Right. There wouldn't really be any reason for us to feel differently. It's not like we would pick a donor who would be similar to
as close as a match to me.
Yeah, so probably similar hair, similar eyes, similar build, height, and even, like, you can even interests, like find out their interests. Skills. Yeah, so like maybe plays hockey, things like that. I mean, obviously there's room for wiggle room, but
yeah, I mean, it's not like I want my child to do everything that I did. I don't really care about that as long as they are happy with what they want and do something that they are passionate about.
Yeah, we just want to be able to make it as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think the hardest part will just be when someone says, or when the child just doesn't look like me as much. The fact that down the road someone could say, oh, they have your eyes, or they have this, or I see this in them, that is something that you have. But I'm like, well, really, that's not true because it's not actually genetically mine. But that's like, how often does that happen? And we'll just deal with it when we come to it. Before we actually went in for our IVF consultation appointment before our very first treatment, before we decided we were going to do it, we actually had come to terms with maybe doing a sperm donor, because we were actually almost like probably 95% positive that was the route we were going to take because of my male factor.
We didn't think that IVF was even a possibility, let alone just because our doctors made it kind of clear that it wasn't, so it was a little bit strange. Weird. And also just because of the financial aspect, and because we're only 22 years old, you don't really think about IVF being a part of our lives. But ever since that treatment, it's hard. The biggest thing for me is it's hard to decide whether or not I want to pursue IVF again and have it most likely not work. But then I think I would feel more confident in myself to say, you know what, we did everything we could, we tried our best, it wasn't our path, and that's clear. That's clear as day for us. And we can move forward with sperm donor and not feel any kind of iffies about it. But then I'm afraid that we're gonna go through the IVF and it's just gonna be so hard. You know what I mean? Like the last time, it was just so difficult and so hard to get over and to get through, and thinking about doing that again is a little bit stressful, especially with how much money it costs and how much strain it puts on my body and our relationship during the time, because I mean, I'm super grumpy during it and everything, but it's just like, it's nice to think of an option that would bypass that hunk of stress, but then like the sperm donor is its own hunk of stress. So it's like, there's really no right way. There's really no right way.
Yeah, so if we end up doing IVF and it works and we have a biologically child that is biologically ours, like biologically, if we have a child that is ours biologically, and then we try some IVF cycles again and it doesn't work because we want our second and third child, well, what now? Like, if we were to do a sperm donor, that means we're going to end up with a child that is ours biologically and one that isn't. And Ayla's fear is that I will look at the one that is biologically ours more like, I'll be closer with it than I will with the one that
Yeah.
isn't, just because of it's really not. It's like it's not mine, but at the same time, like I'll have been there for that whole process. It'll come out of her, and I don't think that's going to be an issue for us. Like, and I wouldn't do that because, like, obviously I would never do that on purpose because it's stupid.
I think it's hard to say now
I know,
until
it's
you're
hard.
in the situation.
I know.
I'm also worried, like, I think about the child and like how that child would feel, the sperm donor child, and they would always
Yeah,
compare themselves to the IVF child, and I just like am so afraid of it affecting
And
the
they
children.
might be upset. Yeah, they'd be upset that we may have given up and
Yeah.
went the easy route, and like now that's why they aren't biologically. I can't talk, like these words just throw me off. Anyway, so you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So that's tough. And like, what are the chances also for us to have 3 IVF cycles work? Because we do want 3, and if we had one that failed, and you know we have thrown in Ayla's possible poor quality eggs in the mix now that we know about that, and what's the chances that we're going to get it to not only work one more time on our next try, but 2 more after that? Like,
Yeah.
what's it going to be, $100,000 before we have our
like,
family? Like,
it's just like a huge gamble. Like this whole thing
Yeah.
is like a shot in the dark. We have no idea. Like, I mean, really, we know that it's not a very good chance,
We
is
do,
what
yeah.
we've been told.
yeah.
And so it's hard to decide if you take that one more time, and how far are you willing to go, and when do you cut off, and when do you move on, and like there's so many questions, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
crazy.
lot to think about.
So
Yeah.
we want to know if any of our viewers or anybody stumbling across this video, have you used a sperm donor? Do you know someone who has? What are your experiences with it? And what can you tell us about it? Are the children okay? Like, have things been smooth sailing? I mean, I know it's not going to be smooth, but ultimately, has that been a good decision for you? Would you recommend it? Those kinds of things.
Would
We're
you
just
do
curious.
anything different? Maybe you know someone who did IVF but then had to do a sperm donor. Who knows? Like, if you have any input like that, anything at all, please help us out. We're gonna cross our fingers that you guys have stuff for us, and if we get enough input, like, we can definitely make another video and kind of discuss that stuff with you, and anything to help us make up our minds. We don't want to make a decision just on the fact that we can't afford it.
We're not going to rush into it either. We're
yeah.
going to take our time with it, but it's been weighing a lot on our hearts, and we just wanted to get it out there and kind of explain to you guys what we've been going through, and just like how serious it is, how big of a deal it is, because we don't take it lightly at all.
No.
We want to make sure that we're 100% confident in our decision, that we have no regrets, that we're completely in the clear, and that we feel good about it, because ultimately starting a family should be a good feeling.
Yeah.
And so far it's been hard and not always the best, and I just want to change that for us. I want us to be excited about it again, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so
that's all we have. But we wanted to say one really important thing. We're just about to 1,000 subscribers.
We're so close.
At this point, making this video, we're at like 950. So I assume within the next day or 2, we'll hit that, and hopefully some more subscribers watch this, some new ones, and watch the rest of our videos too. Check it out, have some fun doing it, and leave some comments and thumbs up if you like it.
Alright, so thanks so much guys for watching, and hopefully some of the questions we brought about have arise with some of you, and you could help us out a little bit with our decision. Just some experiences would be really great, because you don't see very many of them. And yeah, we would love to hear your feedback. So that's it.
That's all for today, folks.
That's all. Should we get Ellie?
Oh, you haven't seen Ellie in a while, have you? I feel like you haven't.
Oh, she's sleeping. She looks so mad.
Alright, well, there she is, and see you guys later.
Bye! Okay, favorite Disney movie? Go.
Tarzan.
Pocahontas.
I like Tarzan.
Pocahontas all the way